Tom for your pickle.
Happy October, everyone. Now that spooky season is upon us once again, I think this is the perfect time to rewatch some classic Halloween cartoons. After making my video on the Arthur Halloween special, I thought about what other Halloween episodes would be fun to cover, and my mind immediately jumped to SpongeBob. I remember having the SpongeBob Halloween DVD as a kid, and putting it on every year around October. For this video, I'm going to look back on what most fans agree are the 4 scariest episodes of SpongeBob. I already made a video covering what I personally consider to be the scariest episode, Wormy. I don't care what any of you say, that episode is pure nightmare fuel. And seeing how well that video did, it only makes sense I should make another SpongeBob video that's nearly twice as long. I narrowed it down to 4 episodes for simplicity, but there are a few episodes I want to give a quick honorable mention to. The first is Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost, which was also on the SpongeBob Halloween DVD, and features the first appearance of the Flying Dutchman. This episode really isn't scary, as the whole premise is just these two mistaking Squidward for a ghost, which gives him an excuse to be a jerk for 11 minutes, though it would make for a good F you Squidward video. Another episode I considered covering was Shanghaied, where SpongeBob and friends get trapped on the Flying Dutchman's ship. Again, despite the setup, this episode really isn't that scary, except for when Squidward gets thrown into the Fly of Despair. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. I do think it is cool how this episode has 3 alternate endings. If you haven't seen the other endings, I highly recommend looking them up. I was also tempted to include Ghost Host, where the Flying Dutchman moves in with SpongeBob, but most of the creepy imagery is intentionally added for shock value, and the Dutchman comes off as more of a prick than a terrifying spirit. I also thought about covering Rock Bottom. It's definitely creepy and has a lot of great monsters, but my buddy Mustard Pregnancy already made a video on that episode, and he covers it much better than I ever could.
Dude, I know everyone already knows this, but this SpongeBob era is like, dude, this is the best freaking era there is.
If you haven't seen his Rock Bottom Bus Theory video, it's definitely worth a watch. Lastly, I had heard about the newer SpongeBob Halloween special, The Legend of Bikini Bottom, but I'll be honest, I haven't watched that episode. It came out well after I stopped watching SpongeBob, and aside from the impressive stop-motion animation, there wasn't anything about the story that really grabbed my attention. I've since been told that not only is it a great Halloween special, but many fans consider it to be one of the better episodes of the show. So maybe I'll take a look at this special down the line, but it would probably warrant its own separate video. Last thing before we get into the reviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're so close to 40,000 subscribers, and if we can hit that milestone by Halloween, I will personally review the abomination that is the Barney movie. Let's not waste any more time and delve right in. This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Make sure to subscribe and help get this video to 4,000 likes. It's Halloween night in Bikini Bottom, and everyone is dressed for the occasion. Even the French narrator is getting into the holiday spirit.
Sorry.
Oh, so they know what Halloween is, but they've never heard of Christmas? It's nearly closing time at the Krusty Krab, when SpongeBob gets spooked by a haunted ticket holder and proceeds to break every single dish.
The dishes are done, I'm leaving.
That's definitely coming out of his paycheck. SpongeBob makes a beeline for the exit when Mr. Krabs stops him in his tracks. He insists on telling his annual scary story around the indoor underwater campfire. Logic. Mr. Krabs explains how the Flying Dutchman appears every Halloween night to terrorize the citizens of Bikini Bottom and steal their souls.
Souls look like pickles?
As a matter of fact, they do.
Mr. Krabs warns SpongeBob to avoid the Flying Dutchman's pickle sack, right when the ghost of Dan Schneider shows up.
Tom for your pickle.
SpongeBob nearly shits his square shorts, only to find the whole thing was just a prank. Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob to come to his Halloween party, unless he's too much of a weenie. Squidward then scares him again like the jackass he is. SpongeBob tries to get home, only to get spooked by a random trick-or-treater.
Trick or treat!
That's just SpongeBob's Scaredy Pants!
Yeah, and your husband wears ties without a shirt on, so don't be saying shit. Also, who says trick-or-treat to a random adult in the streets? And is that a pistol? Why is the fish kid packing heat? SpongeBob is then nearly run over by his driving instructor.
Happy Halloween, Scaredy Pants!
It's weird to think this is only the first time in the show she tries to kill him. Back at home, SpongeBob tries to overcome his fears by carving a pumpkin that's bigger than him, but also somehow smaller than his pineapple house. Logic. He tries to scare Patrick, only to get utterly terrified by his Groucho Marx costume. Patrick tries to help make SpongeBob scary by dressing him as the noseless ghost of the Flying Dutchman, complete with authentic Dutch clogs. He tries to scare some trick-or-treaters, who end up laughing in his face.
Here's your candy.
No, please. That was enough of a treat.
Wears a couple of fish hooks when you need 'em. SpongeBob thinks his costume will look scarier if he makes his head round. Instead of putting on a helmet or a bowl, SpongeBob insists on shaving off his flesh to make himself round. Patrick then uses a chunk of SpongeBob's skin as a sweat rag. Was this show made by Hillenburg or Cronenberg? SpongeBob transformation is complete, and the two set out to scare the pants off the whole town.
Let's go scare somebody.
The graceless ghouls go around the neighborhood pulling weak-ass pranks.
I guess he's been demoted to a haunted sleeping bag.
You stay up all night coming up with that one? Meanwhile, the Krusty Krab's Halloween party is in full swing. Everyone is having fun when Sandy shows up in the aquatic equivalent of blackface. Mr. Krabs nearly chokes to death while his daughter doesn't do a damn thing to help him.
You're embarrassing me again!
He's embarrassing you? At least he's smart enough to know the Bride of Frankenstein isn't a vampire. SpongeBob decides to get revenge on everyone for calling him Scaredy Pants, and scares all the people at the party. The prank is going perfectly until Patrick gets distracted when a jellyfish stings him right in the ass. SpongeBob is now the laughingstock of the party, until the real Flying Dutchman shows up and fries everyone to a crisp with his atomic breath. Turns out the Dutchman is tired of everyone making a mockery of his name with their subpar costumes, with SpongeBob's being the most degrading. He's about to steal SpongeBob's soul when he discovers the absorbent airhead shaved off all his skin. SpongeBob successfully scares off the ghost along with everyone in town, and the episode cuts to black before he presumably dies of exposure. So remember kids, Halloween is meant to be good scary fun, so don't let a spooky prank or two ruin your night. If you want to scare your friends, there are easier ways to go about it than removing all your skin. And don't dress up as real people, lest their spirit comes back from the dead and reads you for absolute filth. But that's still not as scary as the time Squidward nearly killed Gary and accidentally turned SpongeBob into a snail mutant. SpongeBob is playing fetch with Gary, and the snail takes his sweet time bringing the ball back. And I would ask how a sponge can have a 5 o'clock shadow if it didn't magically disappear in the next shot. Patrick barges in to remind him they're supposed to go to the annual jellyfishing convention, but SpongeBob doesn't have anyone to watch Gary. Just then, Squidward shows up to tell SpongeBob to quit leaving his underwear outside his house.
Would you please stop leaving your undergarments on my front lawn?
I mean, a sponge can only drop so many hints. SpongeBob asks him if he can look after Gary. Squidward flatly refuses until he learns SpongeBob and Patrick will be gone for 3 whole days. The sultry squid eagerly accepts the job and barely bothers to listen to SpongeBob's feeding instructions.
Sure it's enough?
And here I thought Granny was the only snail stuffer on the show. The bus to the convention shows up, and Patrick forgets how to use doors. Squidward rushes SpongeBob out of the house so he can start his 3-day weekend. But what about Gary? Squidward then spends the next 3 days turning himself into fried calamari. SpongeBob is on his way home when Squidward suddenly remembers he forgot to feed Gary.
I have seen shit that'll turn you white.
Turns out Squidward let Gary starve for 3 whole days, and now the poor snail is on the brink of death. Squidward tries to save his ass by force-feeding Gary 3 days worth of food, which goes about as well as you'd expect. He nearly gets caught by SpongeBob and decides to hide the food by eating it all himself, instead of throwing it in the trash like a normal person.
Hey, SpongeBob.
I feel like this is where a lot of inflation enthusiasts had their first awakening. SpongeBob is horrified to find Gary in such a lowly state. Squidward tries to bail until his conscience gets the better of him, and calls the best veterinarian that American healthcare can provide.
This is definitely a snail.
The doctor tells him to give Gary a shot of snail plasma, but refuses to do it himself.
I'm too squeamish.
Guy must be from Weenie Hut General. SpongeBob guilts Squidward into giving Gary the shot, which would be fine if SpongeBob could just hold the damn snail still. Squidward accidentally injects SpongeBob with a snail plasma. Who could have seen that coming? Squidward tells SpongeBob he'll be fine, until you realize that's basically the same as injecting someone with cat blood. Turns out Gary was just super thirsty. Go figure. And everything goes back to normal. Or does it? SpongeBob suddenly gets a craving for snail food and starts moving even slower than Gary. He tries to convince himself it's all in his head, until his eyeballs literally jump out of his head. SpongeBob continues to lie to himself as his transformation takes a turn for the worse.
That's okay. I'm a lefty anyway.
That was your left arm, stupid. Meanwhile, Squidward is about to sleep with his clarinet when he gets an unexpected knock at the door. Squidward is horrified to find SpongeBob has gone full furry. Wait, then how did he knock on the door? Squidward tries to touch Snail Bob's eye, for some reason, and proceeds to barricade himself in his house. The sneaky snail manages to get inside and chases Squidward up the walls. Literally. Squidward ends up trashing the place and accidentally injects himself with the rest of the snail plasma, because karma is a bitch. Fun fact, my buddy Parasol P actually made that fan animation. Go check out his channel and let him know Matt sent you. The three snails resign to their fate until Patrick puts Snailward out of his misery.
You clam up!
So remember kids, if you're going out of town, make sure to find a pet sitter ahead of time so you're not scrambling to find one at the last minute. If someone asks you to feed their pet while they're gone, make sure you feed the damn pet. If your pet ends up getting sick, make sure to take them to a reputable vet, that way you don't end up injected with animal blood. But if you do, it's better to just embrace the transformation instead of fighting the inevitable. Also, make sure to watch the credits of this episode to hear an awesome Halloween song by the Ghastly Ones.
Who lives near a graveyard under the sea?
And if a creepy weresnail shows up at your front door seeking revenge, run as fast as you can and never look back. But that's still not as scary as the time SpongeBob created an evil clone of himself. The episode opens with Plankton's voice actor making art in the middle of the ocean. Guest voice acting didn't go as well as he had hoped. He accidentally drops his only pencil into the water, where it nearly skewers SpongeBob and Patrick. The two are perturbed by the giant pencil until they realize they can use it to make cool drawings. SpongeBob draws a jellyfish while Patrick quotes every freshman class art professor.
It's lacking basic construction, and your perspective leaves a lot to be desired.
Just then, SpongeBob's drawing comes to life and swims away. The duo realizes the pencil is magic and they can use it to draw anything they want. Patrick draws a miniature version of Squidward, which turns out to be a horrifying demon child. The creature tries to run off until Patrick promptly erases him out of existence. Patrick then tries to give himself a mustache, when that also comes to life and swims away. Meanwhile, Squidward is moping how hard it is to be a bald, ugly bastard. Just then, the mustache comes flying in and Squidward turns it into a toupee. How convenient. He then turns himself into the Monopoly guy before SpongeBob and Patrick pull a prank on him that causes him to lose his hair. Sucks to suck. SpongeBob then draws a copy of himself to ding-dong-ditch Squidward. Things go horribly wrong when the Doodle goes rogue and beats the shit out of Squidward. Doodlebob steals the magic pencil and runs off to wreak havoc on the town. The duo tracks down the Doodle, who traps them in a pencil pit and gives Patrick more blunt head trauma than Marv. The two come up with a plan to take down Doodlebob, while Patrick indirectly reads his best friend for filth.
It's hideous. Those two buck teeth and that stupid tongue.
The two get ambushed by Doodlebob until SpongeBob gets a hold of the pencil and mercilessly massacres the scary sketch drawing.
I am SpongeBob, destroyer of evil!
It would seem all's well that ends well until the dastardly Doodle returns to get his revenge. How does an arm go to the bathroom? SpongeBob is asleep with a pencil when Doodlebob sneaks in to redraw his body.
No hard feelings, right?
Aw shit. The Doodle tries to destroy SpongeBob and ends up erasing half his house in the process. SpongeBob tries to hide until Doodlebob exposes him and his bare ass. How is he supposed to use the bathroom now? Guess he could try going through his arm. The Doodle nearly erases its creator for good until SpongeBob gets the upper hand, and then immediately loses it.
SpongeBob, you're gonna pay for that!
Doodlebob has him cornered until SpongeBob discovers his one weakness, hand-drawn animation. SpongeBob defeats the evil Doodle and proudly displays his corpse on his wall. He realizes the pencil is too powerful and sends it back to the surface, where the artist at sea ends up destroying it. So remember kids, if you find a magic pencil that makes your drawings come to life, don't use it to pull pranks on your neighbors. And don't use it to create sentient life forms, because they'll probably go crazy and try to erase you out of existence. But if you do, make sure they're fully dead when you defeat them, lest they come back for revenge. And if you're an artist at sea, maybe consider a different hobby that doesn't require you to work in the middle of the ocean. But that's still not as scary as the time SpongeBob and Squidward came face to face with a hash-slinging slasher. It's closing time at the Krusty Krab, and Squidward is itching to get home so he can do weird perv stuff with his clarinet. He's nearly out the door when this random douche shows up 10 seconds before the official closing time.
Are you open?
Read the sign.
I'll have a Krabby Patty Deluxe.
Squidward tells off the petty patron, who threatens to take his money elsewhere. This grabs the attention of Eugene Pennypincher Krabs, who literally steps all over his employee. He forces Squidward to take a double shift with SpongeBob and then bails before either of them can complain to the Department of Labor. SpongeBob is thrilled to be working 24 hours a day, because I guess he's used to being on Nickelodeon 24 hours a day. The silly sponge foregoes the need for sleep, while Squidward begs for the sweet release of death.
Here, please hit me as hard as you can.
SpongeBob drives Squidward insane, as he acts like a 10-year-old who got to stay up past 9:30 for the first time. He goes to take out the trash when he realizes the dumpster is outside. Turns out SpongeBob is scared of the dark. Squidward goads him on as the quivering cube makes a mad dash for the dumpster. To be fair, that's also how I act whenever I need to get my laundry from the basement. SpongeBob plays it off like it was no big deal, so Squidward decides to amp things up and scare his coworkers shitless. He explains how there was another fry cook who used to work at the Krusty Krab until he accidentally cut off his own hand and replaced it with a rusty spatula.
The hash-slinging slasher.
The sash ringing, the trash singing, mash flinging.
He elaborates how the slash-bringing hasher was then hit by a bus and fired at his own funeral. Sounds like something Krabs would do. And now the sash-ringing thrasher returns every Tuesday night to wreak his horrible vengeance. But tonight's Tuesday night, Squidward says there are 3 signs to signal the arrival of the trash-singing lasher. First, the lights will flicker on and off. Then the phone will ring and there'll be nobody there. Then finally, the ghoulish spirit will arrive in the ghost of the bus that ran him over. Because buses can die, I guess. SpongeBob is so engrossed in the story that he starts to eat himself. Not like that. Squidward says there's nothing they can do to stop the mash-flinging Gnasher and scares the ever-loving crap out of SpongeBob.
And you know what he does next?
What did they do?
He gets you.
Squidward laughs his ass off until SpongeBob continues to screech at the top of his lungs. Squidward says it was just a joke and yells at him for losing his shit. SpongeBob takes the joke in stride and replaces his ear-bleeding screams with ear-bleeding laughter. Later that night, the Krusty Krab is a ghost town. When the hell did they put up that sign? Squidward is bored out of his gourd when he hears a weird sucking sound coming from the ceiling. Yeah, I don't recommend listening to these sounds with your eyes closed. Turns out SpongeBob was just mopping the ceiling. Logic. Squidward tries to keep his wits about him and curses his boss under his breath.
Who wants a Krabby Patty at 3 in the morning?
Clearly you've never worked fast food next to a college campus. Just then, the lights start to flicker on and off, just like in Squidward's story. Squidward chalks it up to faulty wiring when suddenly the phone rings. He goes to answer it, only to find nobody is on the other end of the call. Squidward starts to lose his nerve when the walls begin to ooze green slime.
Oh, wait, they always do that.
Things get even worse when a mysterious bus shows up outside the Krusty Krab.
I didn't know the buses ran this late.
They don't.
Squidward shits his non-existent pants when he realizes the flash-bringing Gasher is actually real. SpongeBob thinks it's just another prank, until Squidward points out he can't be in 2 places at the same time. The crash-dinging Basher approaches the counter, and the 2 coworkers finally confess their feelings for each other.
I've always sort of liked you.
Squidward, I'll use your clarinet to unclog my toilet.
Huh?
The 2 are about to get massacred by the bash-pinging Masher when it turns out to be some random nerd wanting a job.
I called earlier, but I hung up because I was nervous.
Who applies for a job at 3 in the morning?
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
So if the rash-bringing Flasher was never real, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
Yeah, hilarious. But seriously, who the hell was driving the bus? And we never see this wannabe fry cook ever again, because he probably quit after Mr. Krabs tried to make him work 90 hours a week while paying him less than slave wages. So remember, kids, if you want to go to a restaurant and it's just about to close, go to another restaurant. If your boss tries to make you work unreasonable hours with coworkers you can't stand, you can always quit and find a different job. If you do end up working the night shift, don't piss off your workmates, lest they scare you senseless with spooky stories of psychotic specters. Conversely, don't make up terrifying tales to terrorize your coworkers, on the off chance your story ends up coming to life and trying to kill you. And if you're looking to work at a fast food joint, don't send in your application at the ass crack of dawn. And whether you're watching these episodes on Halloween or any other time of year, try not to get too scared, because at the end of the day, it's just a cartoon.
Wait!
Is there a cartoon you want me to talk about? Patrons who join my $10 tier can pick which shows I cover on It's Just a Cartoon. There's a limited number of slots available, so sign up now. Coming up next.
Where'd those critters get to?